Hi, my name is Dan Paulson and welcome to this video where I am going to be using a process to decode the Tao Te Ching. This is a process that I've been using all along on my channel, and basically what it is a repeatable process that you use to decode any spiritual or religious verse, and it shows you what is nested inside of it. The process first is to make the verse about yourself. If you can imagine that you have climbed up some mountaintop looking for your guru, and you finally get to him and you ask him a question and he gives you an answer. Read these verses as if that is what you're getting right there, that is the master talking to you. I'm on the search. I want to know what to do. This is for me. So I have to make the verse about myself, which also means that component parts of the verse are component parts of my inner psyche. We're going to stick with some demonstrable techniques, things that are visible, things that everybody can employ. We're not going to do anything supernatural, and we're going to make it about ourselves and about our own psyche. And we'll use verbiage in terms like brain, conscious, subconscious, electrochemical storage, memories, perceptions, words that they didn't have available to them, but they're still telling us. Or I say they, whoever wrote this. I know I say Lao Tzu, we don't know it. It's a collection of work. I treat it as a body of work. To me, it doesn't matter that any of these people ever existed. What matters is we've got a body of work here that we're supposed to dissect and figure out. That's what is for us. Okay, I've thought about this quite a bit, and I think the best way to start this is to get to the finish. I want to, in plain language, describe what I find in this teaching. And then as we go through, we might be able to see that better. I know I'm kind of setting things up, but we're going to follow a procedure and we're going to stay on course. So yeah, just stick with me on this. Okay, so here's what we're being taught in all of our spiritual traditions. That when you're born, you're empty. You're ready to be programmed. That as you become programmed, you go from one person that is happy and gleeful, living in a happy place, to somebody who is learning about life and picking up habits and having experiences in such a way that you're learning to judge and kind of become divided. That happy-go-lucky childhood is now turning into aggravation and angst, or it can for some people. And that as life goes on, at some point, you may be the person who goes, oh, I am going to change. My life is not unfolding right. Things are not okay. I can look around me and see some people are happy with good things happening. I can see people that are unhappy with bad things happening. I myself am somewhere in between. How do I manipulate who and what this is so that I can somehow experience something better? This is what Lao Tzu is describing as the way, this flow. What we know today is when we become those people, that we're basically becoming a product of our perceptions of our experiences. Not necessarily the experiences, but the way we hold those experiences. Happy, joyful, I hate it, I love it. Where did you come from? Good home, bad home, abusive, loving. We become products of those environments. And that is based on the way we perceive things. And that once we do become that person, that life unfolds based on our perceptions, that it continually unfolds. And that our objective is to go in to our self, our own minds, and manipulate our thinking, our perceptions, understanding where we were hurt or where we were taught to believe something or where we picked up judgments or prejudices or whatever it is along the way that's causing us to fail, that is causing us to not have that really good flow of life that we want. We need to get rid of those things, and that changes the flow of life. I think today it wouldn't be a far stretch to say that these are all natural processes, that what is going on is that the human is physically living in the world of five senses, but the universe is massive. All this empty space that at one time in history, they thought there's nothing there. We now know is there's more in empty space than there is physical. The vast majority of our cosmos we can't interact with. That we're simply all sharing or are all in the same electromagnetic field, and we interact with it all individually, but it's based upon our own electrochemical storage of our memories. That's what guides us through the flow of life that everybody else is in. I know they're individual experiences, but if you can almost look at the groups of people as an entity by itself, this entity is having experiences. And they can even enhance each other's experiences. We see people worshiping that share this feeling, that get really excited about things. We're currently watching people now that are going to jail for long periods of time for getting caught up in behavior that they were in a group, people protesting in streets and doing things that they might not normally do on their own, but in a frenzied group of people working together, they become this maniacal, crazy sorts of things. It can happen both ways. We share emotions. We coexist somehow with each other on a level that is beyond physical, and it kind of helps guide our course of life. That is our way. That is the Tao. And how we are electrochemically aligned up here dictates the flow through the electromagnetic cosmos that we live in. That is what I'm going to contend Lao Tzu is going to get to. Okay, the next thing I want to do is talk about translations. I've got 5 different translations of my own, and I almost recommend, if you want to study something like this, that it's good to have multiple translations. The translation happens when somebody takes the original Chinese teaching and converts it into a different language. In this case, I'm an English speaker only, so I'm limited to that as a source. I rely on translators to get the information to me. There's a couple of problems that happen along the way. Number one is that the words don't directly translate. It's not word for word. So there's times where a translator has to pick something that's close. And there might be a couple of options, and they have to pick something that is the best in their own viewpoint. And what is their viewpoint? These have secret teachings nested inside of the verse. The verse is written in such a way to be very cryptic. So if a person is trying to interpret the verse and keep it as close as possible to the original, it's helpful if they know exactly what is nested inside of it. So as they're choosing words in the new language, that they're making sure that everything that is contained in the original verse is contained in the translated verse. And we may lose that along the way. There's potential for things to not get exactly right to us. I've got one point here coming up where I'm going to just read 5 different versions, a couple of lines from each one of the different books, just to show you how different each translator can make it sound. What I'm looking to do, though, is to take those translations and interpret them to try and determine what is nested inside. That is the purpose of this right here, to see what the master is teaching me, or what I think the master is teaching me, and then just take you along for the ride. Okay, I'm going to start then by getting into the first verse here, and I'm going to be reading the Tao Te Ching translation by Stephen Mitchell. It's from Harper Perennial Press, and I will start here with verse 1. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Yet mystery and manifestations arise from the same source. This source is called darkness. Darkness within darkness. The gateway to all understanding. Okay, starting with his first line, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. Remember, this is 2,500 years ago. He is seeing this result of life unfolding. The way your life unfolds is based upon the way you have judged things, the way you are trying to hold things in your mind. He doesn't exactly understand the depths of the mind. It was thousands of years later that we discovered the brain and what it is and how it works. He didn't have a handle on that, or the central nervous system, or how the cosmos was full of energy and we were all linked together lightly at an emotional level, and that we have some capacity to link together. That is how the way is unfolding. Who and what we are is an energy that creates life that fits with who and what we are. That's exactly what is happening, but he doesn't know why or how. He's just saying, it's there, it's working, go with it. And I think that's fine. The next line is, the name that can be named is not the eternal name. Okay, right here he's jumping into it. And this is going to kind of unfold as we go along. It's going to be difficult to take one verse and go, aha, I get this. It'll be easier to cover about 4, 5, 10 verses and go, okay, I'm seeing the concept here. I'm going to cheat and just jump ahead and tell you what this verse is going to end up meaning. The first verse, the Tao is unnameable. It's a source. We don't know what it is. Everything comes from it. It's unnameable. But as soon as you name it, it is no longer eternal. It is no longer something that can be available for anything. It is something that is now only available for what you have named it as. And depending how far along you are on this path, that may or may not sound confusing to you. What my contention is here is that ultimately what is happening is that the universe is this field, that we are in the field, that the energy that is all there, that we are a part of all of that, that we're in that flow, that is what is happening, and he just didn't know that. But we're connected to it through our brain and through our central nervous system, and that what is happening as we move along in the flow, again, is based on what we're holding up here. And what we hold up here is what we have named. So before I get too far ahead, let's just move along to the next verse. The unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Okay, and before I start with the most intense of the interpretation, I'm going to take this opportunity right here to go ahead and show those other examples. I've got the 5 different translations that I talked about, and I'm going to be using, of course, the one that I am using for this video, but also the Man Ho Kwok, the Gia Fu Feng, Ralph Allen Dale, and James Legge versions, all translations by them. And here I'll begin remembering that each of these is simply from a different translation. Nothing, the nameless, is the beginning, while heaven, the mother, is the creatrix of all things. The nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of 10,000 things. In the infancy of the universe, there were no names. Naming fragments the mysteries of life into 10,000 things and their manifestations. Conceived of as having no name, it is the originator of heaven and earth. Conceived of as having a name, it is the mother of all things. And then finally back to the version we're using. The unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Okay, so for me as I go through these, I really kind of get a more solid idea that there is some big energy source out there that is what everything emerges from. And that it has the potential for creating everything that there is. However, once you name something, you create that. It doesn't seem to make sense, does it? I mean, it sounds wonderful. It's a weird thing. All right, let's start using the tools. You turn it inward, you use it on yourself. It is about me. It's about my life. It's about my experience. This guru that I've gone to ask questions to has told me this for myself, for me to figure it out. And I have to know that it is about me. So what I realize then is that my capacity to create and to connect with the world and the Tao is contingent upon the quality of the judgments that I've made in my life. And by that, I mean the judgments that I still hold now. We are an electrochemical storage device. We're many things, but there's a part of who and what we are that is electrochemical storage, memories and emotions, that as we live life and we judge experiences, good, bad, shameful, happy, angry, lots of love. When we experience things repeatedly and we judge those things, they make up a part of who and what we are. And those parts of who and what we are are component parts of how we flow in the Tao, how our life unfolds for us. Everybody is in the Tao. The Tao isn't something you're trying to get into and it's good, and then when you're not in it, it's bad. The Tao is the flow of life. And whatever you judge and however you judge is something that dictates the quality of the flow of your life. Whether you like that or not, it could be something that happened to you that you really don't like. It's not your fault. Well, when you hold it inside of you and you keep it tucked away, it is still living out in that way in the field, and it still causes you to repetitively cycle around experiences that are derogatory that you would maybe like to get away from. You're in the flow. That is your flow. You can almost look at all of these little experiences as if they're small rudders taking you off course. You see a big current you want to flow in, but you keep getting knocked off course into little areas because you're ignoring these little things inside of you that match in the environment with other things that trigger them, and they emerge. And that's just a part of your flow. If you want your flow to be different, you have to change those things inside of you that bring you into those places. Naming things is what gives them their life, which gives you your life. It's not about naming anything in the world. It's about naming your experiences. And naming them, in this case, means giving them their value, their positive or negative value. You give them life. You determine their existence. We tend to do that not consciously. We don't realize that as we go through life, and we store our experiences and our judgments and our prejudices and all of those things. As we store them away, as they become a part of us, as we practice them, that just becomes a part of what guides our life. And yeah, that's it. We name it. We give it its life. That's us. And of course, a couple of those verses alluded to the idea of creating 10,000 things. How many thoughts do we have that once we fix a conviction on something, we give it its life, we give it its value, we give it its purpose in our own life and our own existence, regardless of what those things are. Regardless of what those things are. And then, yeah, we are always in the flow. And those 10,000 things dictate the 10,000 experiences in life that we don't want. Well, we do want some of them, right? We're looking to get to the ones we want and get rid of the ones, or move away from the ones that we don't want. Okay, moving on to the next line here. We have, free from desire, you realize the mystery. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Yet mystery and manifestations arise from the same source. This source is called darkness. Darkness within darkness. The gateway to all understanding. Okay, let's look at these words. Desire a little bit differently. This is not conscious desiring. This is actually stored memory, stored concept, something that Lao Tzu couldn't say. Honestly, from the subconscious perspective, whatever plays out is what the subconscious desires. It doesn't mean that your conscious desires it. When you're busting out and screaming and yelling or doing something like that, and you have to apologize later and there's some sort of cyclical thing going on, maybe not that extreme, but something else, always just something that's a repetitive issue over and over again, that's coming from your subconscious. And your subconscious, you can say it wants to do that. That gives it too much life. It is just a stored concept that fits with a trillion similar experiences out there in the world. It's going to get triggered. Well, it's not a desire, but it's going to come out. It's going to play out. It's a part of who and what you are. And since you've decided to keep it that way, then you've stored it that way, then it's called a desire. That's what you want. Even though consciously you'd go, I don't want that. Then you have to find a way to get rid of what makes it continue to come out. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Free from your filters, from your perceptions, from your judgments, from all the things that you gather up in life that cause you to view life when it happens through those filters. When you're free of all of those things, wow, the flow happens and the mystery happens. The wonderful things happen to you in life that you just go, oh my God, how could that happen? Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Caught in desire when you're hung up on all these things, when you're hung up at the physical world and you have to make things happen, or you don't have to make them happen, but they're happening on their own and you're not dealing with issues and you're cycling around repetitive things that you are struggling with. When you're caught in that modality, you see only the manifestations. You see the physical things happening in life that are a result of those things that you're holding on to. You know, if you're angry about something, you get triggered on that, that's going to cycle. If you're ashamed about something somewhere else and that gets triggered, that's going to happen. All of these things that we hang on to and we get caught up in, we see manifestations of their very kind repetitively in our life because we're in the flow, we're in the Tao. Then this is telling us, though, that the mystery and manifestations arise from the same source. Yeah, it all comes from that place inside of us, or not from inside of us, from the cosmos flowing through us, somehow, something like that. That's the source of what we can create from inside of us. Whatever happens, good or bad, that comes from the same source. And he called that source darkness within darkness, the gateway to all understanding. So first of all, I want to mention something about the gateway, that in pretty much all spiritual and religious traditions that I'm aware of, there is a gateway, a doorway, a cave entrance, a tomb entrance, a curtain to rent between the holy and the holy of holies. There's always some kind of an entranceway. Even if we go into Greek mythology and take something like Jason and the Argonauts and going off for the golden fleece to make his own kingdom happy again, he has to go through the clashing rocks. You know, all of these stories they'll start out with some kind of a gateway or a doorway or something. So recognize that as you go along. I can tell you what that gateway and that doorway is as you go through all of the teachings. When you first start out, that's where you have to go. And as you're on this path and you turn inward, this is a point of beginning the journey inward. The gateway is the first thing you have to do when you go between, and it's literally between the conscious and the subconscious mind. They didn't use those terms. They would have thought carnal mind, soul, or what somehow in your memories. There would be some way you had to turn inward and you had to go through a narrow opening to get inside. That's just a fun thing to know and tell. Darkness within darkness. Darkness is used in different ways in different teachings. Darkness is used in two possible ways. One way is the things that you want to hide away. Your fears, your pain, your shame, the things you don't want to deal with, your anger, your hatred, your judgments, all of those things that it could be called your pain body or a variety of other terms. Anyway, that's not the darkness that Lao Tzu is talking about. He's got something else going on here. You can see that darkness within darkness, the gateway to all understanding, but he's also referring to the idea that everything, whether it is the manifestations or the mystery, that both of them come from darkness. So he's not referring to this as only the bad stuff. It's not your hidden stuff. This is something different. In this case, what he's doing right here, I believe, darkness within darkness, the gateway to all understanding. This is where we live life unaware of the fact that we have become programmed and we are living life responding to everything that is happening out in our world. Not realizing that what is happening in the world, or what brings us into that flow and what causes us to judge things and experience life the way that we do, is because of what we hold inside of us. So we're considered to be spiritually blind. We are responding to what is happening in the environment instead of recognizing that we are in this environment because of who and what we are. That is the darkness. He's telling you darkness within darkness. You got to turn inward and go through the gateway to all understanding. Okay, moving on to verse number 2. When people see some things as beautiful, other things become ugly. When people see some things as good, other things become bad. Being and non-being create each other. Difficult and easy support each other. Long and short define each other. High and low depend on each other. Before and after follow each other. Well, there we have it. He's telling us about the creation of our duality. When we see things and we judge them, we create the opposite of them. When we really like something, the only way we can like something is if we could at any moment in time see something that contrasts it, we would say, oh, I don't like that. We have now created like, dislike, a duality within us. I hate this. I love that. Anything that we're picking up and judging is becoming who and what we are. And what he didn't know, but we do know, is that that is literally putting a memory and an emotional condition with that memory in an electrochemical state into our brain. And the more we practice it, the more we work with it, the more we experience it, the more we give it attention, the more it grows and the stronger it becomes. And we network into the people that we become, which is all different because we have different experiences, and moreover, we judge them differently. When you don't judge the experiences, you cease to make them positive or negative, or up or down, or left or right, or dual in any way, shape, or form. Now, think about this. There's some things you do want to, you're looking for joy. You're not looking for good or bad. You're looking for happiness. It's emotional states that we're looking for here. Anyway, you can see this. This is exactly as we're thinking, as we're living life, as we are processing life, and we are assigning values to our experiences. That is becoming us, and that is what is launching us into our flow. Whatever flow you're in, whatever Tao you're in, is because of these things right here. Now, moving on to the next part, I got to make a comment here. There's one thing that Stephen Mitchell did here that I think is a wrong thing. There's a point where he changed some verbiage from other translations that had things to do with the master, the sage, whatever. And in his effort to be fair, he's putting she, he, kind of mixing it up a little bit. But we have to be careful doing that. I don't believe there's anything awry in this one, but there are teachings from long ago where they're nesting teachings into analogs of their time. If somebody is trying to teach that the conscious decisions and how you decide left or right determines what is in the subconscious, but they don't have terms like that. They don't know the brain. They can't use that. But they're still trying to nest the teaching and not make it plain language. Male and female would have been something at their time. The man was in charge of the woman. The analog that is being used here is the conscious being in charge of the subconscious. The husband tells the wife what to do, the wife carries out his orders. The conscious tells the subconscious what to do, the subconscious acts out on its own. These are analogs that we can't lose. You could also have the son and father, where the father tells the son and the son, the same sort of analogs. We have to make sure that we're keeping somebody in charge and somebody that's not in charge. These are metaphors and analogs. They're not real life. I have nothing but daughters, and I want them to be as equal as anybody else. I don't have this idea that males are above females, but I have this idea that conscious tells the subconscious what to do, and we don't want to lose that nested meaning. Again, I don't think it happened here, but I also wanted to coach in there, I guess, if you're looking at other things or other teachings, and if they're using that male and female, they're not using it as man and woman. Man and woman should not get divorced. Conscious and subconscious should not become separated. They need to become married and stay together. Conscious and subconscious go together. In real life, that might not work. There could be abuse. There could be infidelity. There could be all kinds of reasons why that wouldn't work. So again, make sure to treat all of these things as not real life or historical, or they are analogs and metaphors. If we wanted to say something today, we might tell somebody, when you're brand new. You're like a computer that hasn't been programmed. Then you get programmed, but along the way, you pick up viruses and you start running poorly. And the only way to fix that computer is to get rid of the viruses. And that would be an analog that we could use today that could relate to the person's mind. They didn't have that as an analog. They didn't have technology. They're using different analogs. That's it. So, yeah, we got to be careful. Like I said, we don't lose the nested teachings from people from thousands of years ago because we're trying to be somehow proper or more correct. They were not carrying the baggage that we carry today. They had their own baggage. So we have to kind of maybe in our imagination jump back and forth between their world and ours to kind of see the difference and to update things. Anyway, with that having been said, let me get into the rest of this verse. I'm not finished with number 2 yet. Therefore, the master acts without doing anything and teaches without saying anything. Things arise and she lets them come. Things disappear and she lets them go. She has, but doesn't possess. Acts, but doesn't expect. When her work is done, she forgets it. That is why it lasts forever. Okay, acts without doing anything and teaches without saying anything. I'll just average out this with some of the other versions of the Tao as well. That you are functioning in life without judging what happens. That you are not assigning values to the experiences that you have, which creates places for them and room inside of them to exist where they then continue to experience life in that same way. Some things you may want to experience over and over again. We're looking to get into a good Tao. And that's it. So don't judge the things that are happening. Judge not lest you be judged. Buddha's dual verses. All of these are telling us in the beginning, right up front, when you're wiring yourself, this is what happens. We judge things and we become problematic for ourselves. When you learn that and you can let that go, that's better. Things arise and she lets them come. Things disappear and she lets them go. It's kind of like the Buddha watching things arise, watching them subside. Watch things come, watch them go. Watch your breath come, watch your breath go. But not just that, as situations come up that are horrific situations, you wait, you will see it come up and you will see it subside. And if you don't interact with it, it will still come up and it will subside. When you interact with it, it gets bigger. It continues to increase. You got to let them go. You got to let it go. You just stay away from things. Don't judge the stuff and pull back from it. She has but doesn't possess, acts but doesn't expect. When her work is done, she forgets it. That is why it lasts forever. I struggle with that. I'm going to go ahead and refer to also the Man Ho Kwok version on this one. The sage has no attachment to anything, and he therefore does what is right without speaking by simply being in the Tao. Okay, in this case, he, she doesn't matter. It is consciousness. It is each person, whoever this is. You have no attachments to anything, and you do what's right without speaking. When you're not attached to ideals, political parties, viewpoints, things that, this is difficult because we are attached to things in life. This doesn't mean rules, laws, taking care of people. This is an emotional, spiritual sort of a thing. How are you attached to them? You can help somebody without having angst, anger, hurt, violence against somebody else, emotional turmoil in doing things. Letting things go doesn't mean not helping or not doing things. It means not being attached to things in such a way that your emotional state gets caught up in it, that it wires who and what you are, which causes you to continue to help amplify the wave one direction or another off of center, what you're looking for. Does that make sense? We're looking not only to avoid creating the duality, but as life goes on, amplifying the duality that we actually need to get rid of. All right, let's move on to verse 3. If you overesteem great men, people become powerless. If you overvalue possessions, people begin to steal. The master leads by emptying people's minds and filling their cores, by weakening their ambition and toughening their resolve. He helps people lose everything they know, everything they desire, and creates confusion in those who think that they know. Practice not doing, and everything will fall into place. Okay, let's spend a little bit of time with translations again. I'm just going to pull up two of them here. The very first line of verse 3 says, if you overesteem great men, people become powerless. If I go back to the Manho Kwok definition, it says, if the sage refuses to be proud, the people won't compete for his attention. How radically different do those sound initially? They do mean the same thing, but it really becomes difficult. And at first, when you look outward and think, if you overesteem great men, that makes it sound like it's an outward going thing. You're looking outward. It's praising other people and you're creating that. But I want to tell you how I read this one and how I see it with comparing it to other teachings as well. There is a point where the Buddha tells us, whatever I have learned is just what I have learned. Please continue to carry this on, advance it as we learn more, keep growing with it. He was letting us know that we're all people, and so was he. There's a point where Jesus says, you can do the same things I have done and greater. There are people who think that means, that we're all gods. And actually, I think what it means is that Jesus, like us, we're human beings, we're people. If we esteem or exalt our teachers, we can't achieve what they've achieved because we've given them some kind of a status that is above us. When they're telling us, we're all together, you can do this too. Don't hold people up high. Everybody get involved in this. That's how I read this. This is his way of saying, yes, it is all available. All this knowledge, all this information is available to every human being. You can find this too. I am not a special person. I just found this. And I'm telling you, you can find it too. All right. And the last line on that one was, if you overvalue possessions, people begin to steal. This is really about you and the lessons for you. If people steal your stuff, oh well. The problem isn't that. The problem is the value that you hold over the possessions. What do you live for? Do you obsess for your things, or are your things a part of your life? Yeah, don't value your possessions to the degree that they're more important than other aspects of your life. Okay, then it went on to say, the master leads by emptying people's minds and filling their cores, by weakening their ambition and toughening their resolve. He helps people lose everything they know, everything they desire, and creates confusion in those who think they know. Okay, emptying people's minds, the master empties their mind. That's all you can do. You cannot empty somebody else's mind. You can only empty your mind. But what is the emptying of the mind? It is letting go of your convictions. It's letting go of those things that you have kind of fractionalized your mind into all of these little compartments of beliefs and convictions and judgments and pain and hurt and all these things that you're just glommed onto that you become unless you can let that go. Emptying people's minds means letting that stuff go in you and teaching other people that they have to let it go. You cannot empty somebody else's mind. Only they can do that. Only I can empty mine. Only you can empty yours. So at the end of the day, yeah, this is about yourself. And again, you'd have to go through all the different interpretations. Filling their cores, weakening their ambition, toughening their resolve. You're looking really in your own self to empty yourself of your convictions, of all of those things that you have judged, and you're now ready to say, I want to get rid of that stuff. Then you just learn to let it go, getting into the flow. The ambition, weakening the ambition is weakening the desire to control things. Toughening your resolve is getting into just, I'm going after this. All of those are a part of this healing psychological process that fits with the teachings of the master. Okay, and the last line in that was practice not doing, and everything will fall into place. There we have our wu wei, our effortless action. So what we've learned so far in these verses is that there is a flow. Lao Tzu called it the Tao. We know it is the way. It's just the current of life. And that how we travel through that current of life is dependent upon what we've put up here. Getting rid of that and just not grasping things, letting it go. You have desires, you have things you want, but you don't cling to them. You just live life and watch as those things happen. As long as you remove the impediments, all of the judgments, there was a lot of judgments there, left, right, up, down, 10,000 things. All of that has to go. Or the more of it that goes, the more in line you are with the flow that you're desiring. The more you keep on board that you don't like, the more those things are going to take you off course. Okay, verse 4. The Tao is like a well, used but never used up. It is like the eternal void, filled with infinite possibilities. It is hidden but always present. I don't know who gave birth to it. It is older than God. All right, another caution. God can take on different forms, the definition of God. And I struggle with that one, and these, I'm actually okay with it. I think the problem is that if you're not familiar with God being something that Lao Tzu didn't say, it was, for him, God didn't mean God like we know the God of Abraham. That was not at all what it was. This was a translation done that could have been something different. Let me move on actually and show you real quick what the Man Ho Kwok version says. This is the same verse. Tao exists. Tao is. But where it came from, I do not know. It has been shaping things from before the first being, from before the beginning of time. You see there, that was completely devoid of the term God. It's still saying the same thing, but in the definition, or in the translation that uses God, you have to understand that God is not the God of Abraham, that wouldn't have been a Lao Tzu thing. So just use caution when doing these. And all this verse is saying really here is re-emphasizing the idea from Lao Tzu that I don't know what makes this happen. It just works. If you do these things, life unfolds for you. How it happens, I don't know. It's there. It's always there. It's obviously the root of all things. Everything emerges from whatever this is. And we don't know what that is. From the Big Bang till now, whatever that is the Tao is emergent from that. Okay, on to verse 5. The Tao doesn't take sides. It gives birth to both good and evil. The Master doesn't take sides. She welcomes both saints and sinners. The Tao is like a bellows. It is empty, yet infinitely capable. The more you use it, the more it produces. The more you talk of it, the less you understand. Hold on to the center. Okay, back to the first panel there. The Tao doesn't take sides. It gives birth to both good and evil. The Master doesn't take sides. She welcomes both saints and sinners. The Tao is capable of producing anything. It's the energy. Whatever you create through your thinking is how you're using the Tao. It creates both good and evil. It creates the good things in your life and the bad things in your life. The Master doesn't take sides. She welcomes both saints and sinners. This is not saints and sinners in the world. This is the saints and sinners in your mind. As you see things happen that is good or evil, you stop judging them as good or evil. You don't process them as good or evil. Yes, they are hurtful or not hurtful things. Yes, they can be things that you look at and can be feel horrified by. The issue is don't look at it and process it and put it away and get angst about it, or like I alluded to earlier, hating other people for doing something somehow creating something within yourself that becomes a part of the continuation of how you flow into the Tao. So you welcome both saints and sinners. That's just telling you don't judge things. Don't judge right there. The next one is the Tao is like a bellows. It is empty yet infinitely capable. It's never going to stop. It's always capable of giving you what you need. The more you use it, the more it produces. The more you talk of it, the less you understand. It's like anything in life. Whatever you focus on, you network into. It becomes more prevalent in your life. Whether it's the Tao, whether it's your job, your car, your failed relationships, whatever you focus on, you network into. If you're familiar with the works of Jesus, he says something about the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. It starts very tiny and it grows until it gives shelter to the birds of the air. So it's growing from a ground level, a tiny thing that starts at ground level up into this branching thing that he's describing. Sounds like a network. He couldn't have used that term. And then it provides shelter for the elevated being up there. This is the same thing. It is, the more you talk of it, the less you understand. I don't know if that's the case anymore. It depends on how you talk about it, what you're doing, what you're employing with it. Hold on to the center. Yeah, let go of the ends. You want to keep balance? Let go of the ends. That's it. Hold on to the center. Don't judge things left or right. Okay, on to verse 6. The Tao is called the Great Mother. Empty, yet inexhaustible. It gives birth to infinite worlds. Whatever, there it is. It's just telling you that whatever this source is, it never stops. I think if we think it's the universe, and we see how big it is today compared to what they knew, yeah, it's probably going to be pretty inexhaustible for us. It is always present within you. You can use it any way you want. More of the same. We're seeing that. Although I'm kind of getting probably one more point of resolution on what we're doing here with the mind and the thinking and how you process it. But that's it. Yeah, it unfolds based on how we process it, how we process life, and how we continue to process life. Okay, let's move on to verse 7. The Tao is infinite, eternal. Why is it eternal? It was never born. Thus, it can never die. You're going to find there's a lot of the same that starts going on now. His objective at this point is to try to describe that there is something going on that is unexplainable. A theist might spend this kind of time trying to convince you that there is a God. Lao Tzu is trying to convince you that there is a force, there is something. But if you can imagine being a Chinese peasant 2,500 years ago, and you didn't know all of these terms, cosmos, Big Bang, all of that kind of stuff, energy, what would you know? What would you understand? The master Lao Tzu is trying to tell ourselves 2,500 years ago what is going on. So keep that in mind as you're processing and trying to understand this, that it's something that is more in our grasp than it was for him. And that's everything that's happening so far in the Tao Te Ching. He is telling us that this force is there and that it's available for anybody, for anything, and that how you judge and filter things is how you use it, whether you're consciously aware of that or not. Why is it infinite? It has no desire for itself. Thus, it is present for all beings. He's describing just the cosmic ebb and flow of things that we all experience and that we all work with. And as far as creation, what I really mean is the manifestation of your life through yourself. That's it. That's how we manifest our lives. The master stays behind. That is why she is ahead. She is detached from all things. Okay, we see how it doesn't correlate in the physical world at all. The staying behind is not how you get ahead. If you're in a race, if you're in last place, you're going to be in last place. You're not going to be ahead. So this is the spiritual realm. This is a different way that things work. Things are in motion and there's nothing you can do to stop them. If you are ahead, you're trying to lead those things, you're trying to guide those things, you're trying to make them happen. You're kind of fighting against the flow because you are in front of trying to get it to move where you want it to, instead of setting things up, letting it go, and then staying back and then just letting it unfold. She is detached from all things. She, he, we, you, me, whoever it is. When you're detached from things and you just allow them to happen, but you've taken care of everything else, then, it's going to unfold just fine for you. Remember to think of it this way, that whatever is happening for us is because of the filtering that we're holding up here, because of the judgments that we have made. So whatever is happening in life is happening because of what is up here. If you have left this in place and you're scrambling ahead trying to make it change, you're being driven from this. You have to change the drive and let things go, and then things will unfold based on the drive. If you don't take care of this and you're running around trying to fix things, you're trying to fix what you're manifesting yourself. And what is manifested is already done. There's an energy making it happen. By the time there's a manifestation, that's the fruit. That is the final result. If you're chasing that down, you're kind of running backwards. You have to change this to change life. As within, so without. That's totally serious. Okay, let's go ahead and move ahead to verse number 8. The supreme good is like water, which nourishes things without trying to. It is content with the low places that people disdain. Thus, it is like the Tao. In dwelling, live close to the ground. In thinking, keep to the simple. In conflict, be fair and generous. In governing, don't try to control. In work, do what you enjoy. In family life, be completely present. When you are content to be simply yourself and don't try to compare or compete, everybody will respect you. Okay, part of the decoding process is always to try to use the verse on yourself. To try and, if you have to destroy enemies, those are in here. If you have to clean out the inside of your cup, it's the inside here. Those are always the first place you go to try and decode it. But there's a point where those lessons stop, the nested lessons stop, and it just might give a world lesson. Things like, I need a new cart, my roof leaks, I hate goat milk. None of those have nested lessons inside of them. So not everything has a nested lesson. In this case, I'm going to be careful to not try to put things in that aren't there. In this case, the supreme good is like water which nourishes things without trying to. It's content with the low places that people disdain. Thus it is like the Tao. The energy just flows into everything. Period. That's it. We can say that. Remember 2,500 years ago, you're a Chinese peasant. What do you hear? Energy flows into everything. You'd be like, what is he talking about? The Tao gets into everything like water. Oh, okay. Okay, got it. In dwelling, live close to the ground. In thinking, keep to the simple. In conflict, be fair and generous. These are lessons in how to live a personal life, of having a simple life, not complicated, living close to the ground, meaning living close to the earth, close to the source of life, not palaces and working for things that they might be something that you have, but they're not something that you focus your life on trying to accomplish, because when you die, they're gone. That's what you spent your life focusing on. In thinking, keep to the simple. In conflict, be fair and generous. Same things. It's really just living a simple life, and in conflict, being fair and generous. If you're in charge, there's always two sides of the story. Remember, it's the left and right, the balance, the determination of naming things. Being fair and generous means to, just making sure that whatever conflict that you're resolving, and this is one that you can turn inward. You can resolve conflict in yourself, and you can resolve conflict in other people. Just to be fair and generous about it. And then in governing, don't try to control. Governing, I don't go so far as to say what governors and elected officials should do. In governing, this is a very personal thing, although Lao Tzu does get into how to rule a nation later on. In this case, governing can be governing your family, governing your children, governing conflict somehow in some way that you do have capacity to. Don't try to control it. Same as everything we've been talking about all along. If things are unfolding, observe what's happening. What is unfolding is what is inside of the people. Make sure to pay attention to that. You can deal with what is happening by understanding what motivates the people, as opposed to looking at the situation that they have conflict over and dealing with that collision of conflict. The conflict is the final result. In work, do what you enjoy. You know what? Just do what you enjoy. Have fun. Life is about having fun. You perpetuate more of what you are, of what you experience, of what you emotionally experience. In family life, be completely present. Yeah, it's all the same thing, being present. Not thinking ahead, not thinking back, not being frazzled, not being all over the place, not dealing with putting out fires, but sitting back and going, I have to resolve this up here, and then everything else unfolds. And that, ultimately, that is the bottom line of Lao Tzu's teaching. Okay, let's move on to verse 9. Fill your bowl to the rim and it will spill. Keep sharpening your knife and it will blunt. Chase after money and security, and your heart will never unclench. Care about people's approval, and you will be their prisoner. Do your work, then step back. The only path to serenity. Okay, I find this is actually a very good opportunity to stop and show 5 examples again of different translations, and see how that helps with the interpretation. I'm going to go to the first sentence in that verse, and I'm just going to go through and read all the 5 different translations, and you can see how different they sound, yet how similar they sound. Fill your bowl to the rim, and it will spill. Hold yourself back from filling yourself up, or you'll tip off your stand. Better stop short than fill to the brim. Keep filling your bowl, and it will spill over. It is better to leave a vessel unfilled than to attempt to carry it while it is full. Okay, fun. Here's what we get, the idea that you're not supposed to fill up this bowl. It sounds like a derogatory thing. The cup, whatever the vessel is that we're filling, is us. We turn it upon ourselves. It is we are the ones who want to fill. If we continue to fill ourselves with life and the things that clog us up, it's going to spill over. It's going to exit us. It's going to make a mess. It's going to bust out. It's going to come out in all kinds of ways. It's not relaxed and it's not peaceful. Don't fill yourself to the brim. This is one of those verses you look at, though, and you think, boy, is there more to it? Or it seems very simple, maybe not that important, or something that we kind of already have a handle on. Why is it so repetitive? And what you're going to find, what I have found, is that I go through these teachings and you do the decoding like this, you're going to find out that in every global teaching, you read them and they sound radically different from each other until you turn them in upon yourself and start to decode them. When you turn inward, there's only so many things you do to get spiritual purity and to let things go and to forgive and that kind of stuff. So these massive outward-looking stories that take you all over the place are there as a carrier for most people. And as a result, as we go through this and begin to decode things, and as we move further into it, you're going to start seeing repetitive processes emerging that have been nested inside of the verse. And Lao Tzu is the least of everybody that nests. Lao Tzu Buddha is pretty close to Lao Tzu too. And I am going to contend that they did nest their meaning, that this is not plain language on their behalf, but it is nevertheless their language. And it's really incumbent upon us to understand what they're talking about. They don't have technology. Again, we are ahead of them. We have to go capture what they're talking about, trying to understand what they are talking about, utilizing their best knowledge of their time. Then we get a better idea of what they're talking about because we have learned so much in thousands of years. As long as we live life treating them like they are some mysterious master, we can't touch it. They would probably look at us if they could and say, what? Wow, you guys are masters. How'd you figure that stuff out? Yeah, we're all together in this. Let me finish up with that verse and let's see where we end up here today. Fill your bowl to the rim and it will spill. Keep sharpening your knife and it will blunt. Okay, and on this one, the difference is keep sharpening your knife and it will blunt. It goes with the bowl to the rim and it'll spill. In this case, I see 2 possibilities. Number one, we, again, make it about yourself. And if you keep sharpening your knife and it will blunt, what would that mean? Keep sharpening your skills, keep sharpening your knowledge, keep sharpening your path, and it will blunt. Is that a warning that as you're doing this, that you're still going to find things that happen along the way that's going to cause you to have to reassess and reevaluate? That's a possibility. Or to say, oh, I've got something else wrong inside of me. How do I fix this one as well? There's something else I've judged that's inside of me that I've got one of those little rudders I've got to get rid of. It could mean something like that. On the other hand, it could mean something like, no matter how much time and effort you put towards something, you keep focusing and focusing and focusing and focusing on it and make it a certain way. At some point in time, it's going to be behind you and it doesn't matter anyway. Either of those I would see as viable spiritual interpretations of this verse on how to apply it in a way to make it personal. All right, next line is chase after money and security and your heart will never unclench. Existential suffering, desiring, wanting, having an unquenchable desire for things that you don't have. And that includes people and things. A lot of people want something that is somehow monetarily beyond them at the moment, but there's also people that want relationships that they don't have and they're not successful with. And they're not recognizing that they are actually flowing in their Tao. That is exactly what they are bringing with them. Their life is unfolding in that way because of what their subconscious is saying. I'm gonna go do this. You have to recognize that. You have to see that going on. The issue then, by inference, that people should recognize is that what's happening is that your emotions are radiating into the environment and attracting emotional similarities, and that the feelings that you have, the dread, the angst, the other things like that are radiating out into that field. This is not a new teaching, and it's pretty common, and it's becoming more well known. But that's exactly what's happening. But I think that's also why that's happening. To change this flow, you have to change up here. That DVD tells you, just forget that stuff. Every teacher says, that's the only thing you go after. Then life will unfold properly. We got it backwards. Fix this, life unfolds. So in this case, chase after money and security. It's really chase after. That's it right there. What is the effect of chase after? Money and security is just things in life that you don't have. Heart will never unclench. That means you're going to feel anguish. Chase after. That is the issue. Care about people's approval, and you will be their prisoner. This is simple enough if you think about it. It's a mental process. If you need other people's approval, then they are the ones in charge of your happiness. There's something up here that is preventing you from getting your own. And if you resolve this up here, you won't be seeking other people's approval. You will have your own approval. You will feel confident. You'll be fine. And if somebody doesn't like something about you, you'll just shrug and say, that's their problem, not mine. Right now, if you're seeking people's approval, that's your problem. When you don't seek other people's approval, then it's not there. Find out why that's happening, and it's probably a complicated thing. The words are easy to say. Do this. Forgive. Okay. Sounds easy. Then, some girl has to go off to straighten out her life and figure out how to forgive somebody who molested her for years or something. How tough is that? Yeah, there's a lot to this that isn't really on the surface here. But it's psychological. Recognize that. We got malleable brains. It's all repairable. It just doesn't feel good, but it's repairable. Do your work, then step back. The only path to serenity. There you go. That's it. You do all of that stuff and sit back and let life unfold, and you'll just be happy. But when you're so grabbed onto things and you need to cling and you need to make things happen a certain way, I think when people get to a certain point, if you've watched this video for this long, you're already on board with this. I don't have to say anymore. The video is probably at a good stopping point, though, for the length of it. I didn't get very far along in the verses, but I realized I had to unpack a lot in the beginning to kind of describe how this was going to go to invite people on board. I'll let you know that it's all theoretical, but it seems to me as if you keep doing this in different teachings that they all reveal this inner path, cleaning the inside of the cup. Some stories are big. The flood story. I'm the world. I'm full of things eventually in life, and a flood is symbolic. It's an analog for a purging, a rebirth story, and you start over again. You can look at the story as historical or as mythical or as something that contains a nested lesson that's a spiritual teaching. And that's what I see that's in there in all of these things. And I hope in the upcoming videos I'll reveal that. But okay, I'll stick with the Tao right here. The next time I get into it, I'll just really quickly get into the interpretation of the verse. Again, you're going to see a lot of similarities. I'm not going to keep taking a long time. It's going to go along much quicker as we move along. The things that get into when Lao Tzu is talking about how to rule a nation, those are good things to know. But I'm going to be honest with you. We know today that individually we go on this path. We're not the people that rule the nations. You're not the person that rules the nation. The people that rule the nations are doing something different. We can only rule our own nation. We have to treat it that way. We can't look at it as a global thing, as a global teaching. And sometimes it sounds like it is. So we'll look at that and just carefully go through it. And yeah, it's theory. At no point am I saying this is it, but I think it is. I think it is. It looks like it to me. Anyway, probably the biggest thing that helped me, a couple of things to see the repetition was, number one, having the imagination of a child. You know, just being able to go out and spend hours thinking of what it would be like to, be some peasant in China or a little shepherd boy, in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. And I'm trying to figure out what they're teaching. And in doing that, I began to realize, boy, I can't think in my current time with my knowledge the way that they could or the way that they did. I had to change the way I perceived things in order to see this. I would recommend that would be one of the biggest boons that anybody could do, is to figure out what it was like thousands of years ago and try to get into their position and understand what they understood. And then you'll go, oh, bingo, I got this. And then as you go through these stories, you'll see that they're simply nesting the same teachings using analogs of some sort into a different culture, a different vehicle, a different time, a different place. It could be in a spiritual teaching. It could be in a mythology. It could be in a religion. And the religions are the big and popular ones, but they got a big prize. All right, everybody, use your imaginations, and I'll see you in the next video.